Okay, so after 2 long years of devastating war in Gaza, something pretty stunning just happened. A comprehensive peace plan has been announced by the U.S. And here's the real shocker. Israel has apparently accepted it. At least that's what they're saying publicly. So you have to ask, is this a real breakthrough or is there something else going on here?
All right, so let's get right into it, because the way this whole thing was announced, well, it was packed with some serious political drama. So picture this. You've got President Trump standing right next to Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu at the White House, and he delivers this incredibly stark ultimatum aimed directly at Hamas. The message couldn't be clearer. Accept this deal or else. I mean, he basically told them, if you reject it, you'll face the consequences and we'll have Israel's back completely. It's an incredibly high-stakes move, and it really sets the stage for everything that follows. But here's the crucial pivot. Before any talk of finishing the job, Trump put something else on the table first. He laid out this really detailed 20-point plan designed to end the fighting right away. You know, it was the classic carrot before the stick.
So, you're probably wondering, what's actually in this plan that's got the whole world talking? Let's break down the main points.
Okay, this proposal is ambitious, to say the least. First up, it calls for an immediate ceasefire, and get this, all 48 remaining hostages would be released within just 72 hours. But, and this is a huge but for Hamas, it demands that they completely disarm and have zero role in governing Gaza in the future. Now, on the other side of the deal, Israel would have to do a phased withdrawal and promise not to occupy or annex the territory. And to run things in the meantime, an interim government overseen by an international board would step in and make sure full humanitarian aid can finally get in.
And the prisoner exchange part of this deal is pretty massive. We're talking about Israel releasing 1,950 Palestinians in return for the hostages. And that's not just a random number. It includes 1,700 people who were detained just since the war started, and, this is a big one, 250 prisoners who are serving life sentences. So a really significant part of the deal.
The plan also gets into what happens with Gaza's leadership. It's not going to be left to the local factions to sort out. Instead, they're proposing this thing called a peace board. And guess who's chairing it? President Trump himself, along with other big names like Tony Blair. This board would basically oversee a new politically neutral Palestinian group that would be in charge of running public services. All right, this brings us to the million-dollar question. Prime Minister Netanyahu has spent 2 years, literally 2 years, vowing to completely eliminate Hamas. So why on earth would he agree to a deal that basically offers its members amnesty? Well, the answer isn't in Washington. It's a lot closer to home, back in Israel.
You see, Netanyahu was basically backed into a corner. He was dealing with 5 huge pressures all at once. You've got these massive, unprecedented protests from the families of the hostages. Then, there was a growing revolt among army reservists. On top of that, the very real threat of arrest warrants from the International Criminal Court was looming. And key European allies were starting to make economic threats. You put all that together, and his own political survival was suddenly on the line.
And when we talk about public anger, we're talking about an immense scale. Just think about this. In August 2025, more than 400,000 people poured into the streets of Tel Aviv. That was the single largest protest in Israel since the war started. It was just this massive, undeniable public demand for a change in direction.
And their slogan was just so powerful and emotional. The families of the hostages were chanting it, and it really captured how the public mood was shifting. The demand was crystal clear. Bring our people home, even if it means we have to compromise on the goal of total victory.
Okay, so that's one side of the equation. But what about the other? How has Hamas reacted? They're the group that has to essentially surrender for any of this to work.
Well, for Hamas, this plan is basically an existential crisis. Think about it. The core demands: disarm completely, give up all control, have no future role in government. Those things are the exact opposite of the group's entire reason for being, which is armed resistance and political power. If they accept this deal, they're essentially abandoning everything they claim to stand for.
So publicly, Hamas is playing it cool. They're saying they're reviewing their proposal in good faith. But behind the scenes, it's a totally different story. The sentiment is way more critical. One official was really blunt with Reuters, calling the plan completely biased to Israel and saying it puts impossible conditions on them.
So, this is where we get to the major roadblocks. Because even with one side saying yes and the other maybe, this plan is facing a huge mountain of criticism and, frankly, a lot of skepticism. Remember, the official story, especially coming out of Washington,
was that everyone was on board. Netanyahu stood right there next to President Trump and publicly said yes.
But then, almost immediately, he turns around and, in a separate statement, seems to completely contradict the whole deal. He claimed the Israeli military would remain in most of the territory and that Israel absolutely not did agree to a Palestinian state. So right away, people are asking, is he really committed to this thing?
And that might not even be the biggest problem. Perhaps the most glaring criticism of this whole plan is about who wasn't in the room when it was being put together.
Yeah, as international relations expert Jessica Genowar points out, it's pretty striking that there was no consultation with any Palestinian leaders. We're not just talking about Hamas, we mean any Palestinians. And she says that this massive gap could be the plan's ultimate undoing. Because how can you impose a future on people without even asking them what they want?
And critics like Mustafa Barghouti take it even a step further. They point out that this plan completely ignores the core, long-standing issues that have been driving this conflict for decades. I mean, there's no mention of ending the broader occupation or stopping West Bank settlements. In a way, it's like it's only focused on the symptoms we see in Gaza, not the root causes of the whole thing.
So, when you put all of this together, it leads you to a really fundamental question: what is the true purpose of this plan?
Because if you look at the political math here, it kind of seems like everyone gets a win just by putting the plan out there, whether it actually works or not. For Donald Trump, it's a huge foreign policy victory he can point to. For Netanyahu, it takes a ton of domestic and international pressure off his shoulders, and if it fails, he can just blame Hamas. And hey, even for Hamas, just talking about the plan buys them time and keeps the hope of a prisoner release alive.
And so that's the ultimate question we're left with, isn't it? Is this a genuine effort to build peace, a real roadmap designed to finally end a brutal 2-year war? Or is it just a really smart political move where each side is secretly hoping the other one says no so they can walk away and blame them for the failure? Right now, the whole world is waiting to find out.